Afternoon, it's Dave T1963. Guess it's time to post another video. It might be a little bit controversial. I just listened to two podcasts this morning, and I have to say, man, it was very discouraging. The one was a podcast where they were talking about how the DNRs in certain states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, those are the states I remember mentioned, that they're ruining hunting through their regulations. And a lot of it is true. But what made me frustrated in that video is one of the answers that this clown, and I'm going to call him a clown, I don't think he's an expert. One of the conclusions that he came up with is that states need to start cracking down and limiting non-resident hunting. And here's what I've got to say about that. The whole notion of that podcast was about decreasing hunter numbers in these states and how practices like baiting and this and that are ruining hunting. And instead of addressing that, they want to limit the number of hunters. That makes no sense. We don't have enough hunters now as it is. Access to land is getting harder and harder to find across this country. And here this bozo wants to limit the average working class person that has to rely on public land. And not everyone has public land in the state that they're in. And so they choose to go out of state. And for many of them, that's the only time they're going to get to hunt with their kids. We have neighborhood kids now that can't find a place to fish, can't find a place to squirrel hunt, can't find a place to dove hunt. All because everyone's getting so dang greedy and egotistical about hunting, which brings me to the second podcast. And I like these guys. It was the old guys from Exodus. They were interviewing a bunch of hunters on what's the one mistake that keeps someone from being a good hunter, keeps them from being a great hunter. And all but one of those guests, every single one of them, their answer revolved around a buck with a large antler set or a mature buck. That's what makes a great hunter. Who defined that as a great hunter? In some cultures, maybe someone who provides food for their family is a great hunter. Maybe it's the person with the most woodmanship. Me personally, I think what makes a great hunter today in America is someone who takes the time to take kids out into the great outdoors and to teach them skills and ethics that we used to have. That to me makes a great hunter. Or it's a landowner that opens up his land and allows kids to come out and dove hunt and squirrel hunt or trap or anything in the outdoors on their property. That to me is a great hunter. And most of these people that were interviewed hunt on private land. They use switchgrass. They control access. Their deer are very unpressured. That's not a great hunter. I mean, who picked these guys? And what's sad is why aren't more people saying, to me, someone who's a great hunter or a great outdoorsman is someone who's fighting to get access to more and more land, or getting involved with kids in the local community. It used to be that the inner city kids were the ones that didn't have opportunities. Now it's that we've pushed that out into the rural communities. Most kids nowadays don't have a place where they can go fishing if they desire, or if they can go trapping or hunting. And to me, that's what's sad. And what's even more heartbreaking is that the majority of us hunters are so concerned about killing bigger bucks so that, they don't taste any better. They don't feed our families any better. The only thing they feed is our personal egos. And we've made that the cornerstone of hunting. It makes no sense to me why that would be the definition between a good and great hunter. How about someone that hunts ethically? How about a great hunter is someone who don't rely on all the modern gadgets and technology of today? How many hunters can actually find a bench out in the woods without LiDAR nowadays? Or GPS? How many of them can identify the trees out in the woods without using an app on their phone? It's just frustrating to me that how we define things nowadays and what we think make something great or not. Killing a big buck on private land in Iowa is not a hard thing, especially if you can control the access. It's not a hard thing to do. Killing a buck in a swamp in Florida, that's a hard thing to do. Killing a buck in the vast mountains of Pennsylvania, to me, is a harder thing to do. I hunt a lot of ag country in a lot of the Midwestern states, and it's not that hard, especially if you have exclusive rights to that property. Now, here's what I will say is hard. If you can go out and buy a farm and set it up for good hunting, well, you know what's hard? Not killing a buck on it. What would be hard is to share that with people who don't have that opportunity. That would be hard for the average person nowadays, because we're so narcissistic and we're very pride and we're stingy. And that's sad. Anyway, that's enough for this video. I'm sure I'll get some hates on this one. Dave 2 1963 out.